Welcome to the Amber Data Derivatives GUI demo. So basically what I'll be showing here is how to navigate our GUI application and some of the features that we have here on the app. Now jumping into the futures and perpetual side of things, if I go here to Perps and Futes or Delta One products and I double click global, what we'll see here is essentially a bunch of different stats around funding and futures basis for our supported exchanges. So we support Binance, Bybit, BitMEX, Deribit, Huobi, Kraken, and OKEX. So here I'm looking at Bitcoin. I can see essentially a time series of funding throughout time. I can change the date range and see how that funding has changed. This other chart here is really interesting. So this is going to be cumulative funding. So I can look at the realized funding discretionary at each point, or I can change it to realized, accumulated realized. So I can see, given this date range, how much funding have I paid out over time on these various exchanges? So you can kind of hover here and really see what that looks like. On the right-hand side here, I can actually compare two exchanges side by side or two instruments. So I have this list of instruments. Let's just say I want to look at Deribit funding for Bitcoin. You can go down here to the Bitcoin perpetual, and then I want to compare that to Deribit funding for the ETH perpetual. So let me just go over here and find it here. Perfect. So in this case, I'm looking at the coin settled version for both. And now I can go to the accumulated funding over time and really see if there's a differential between the two. So you can get a really good idea of what that looks like. I can expand this date range. Let's say I want to look over the past year and understand, if I was just long the perpetual, how much funding am I paying? And is there a difference between the two assets? And now you can really see that. So that's something that's really, really interesting. We could see here in Ethereum space, after the merge, there was a little bit of a decline in funding. So that type of stuff is really interesting. If I scroll down a little bit more here, I can see the funding over time. So I can see the min and the max and then the average over time. And I can pick out different intervals. So right now I'm looking at the past 1 day, but if I want to look at the past week, I could do that. And so now I can see it broken out by all the various exchanges and instruments. And this gives me a really good idea of the two side by side. Here I can look at volume over time by the different exchanges, open interest over time by the different exchanges. Here I can look at the APR of basis for all the futures by the different exchanges. I'm looking at in APR terms, or I can look at it in price terms. Now getting a really good idea of the structure of the basis over time. This chart will show us the basis, the calculated basis over time of the various futures. In this case, I'm looking at 90-day futures. So we basically do an interpolation there to calculate the 90-day future, and we can see how that basis moves over time. Kraken is a little bit less liquid, so it's more volatile, but you can essentially get a really good idea of what that looks like. Binance is the most sort of stable, most liquid, so you'll get sort of the best picture there. If I scroll down a little bit more here, I can see the liquidations by day. So obviously in the future, this will be less relevant, but on August 17th, 2023, we had a huge sell-off in Bitcoin, so a lot of liquidations occurred. And so we can see here total liquidations broken out by exchange. And then here we can see the intraday liquidations as well. So I can pick out specific exchange. Right now I'm looking at Deribit. And now we can see on the 17th and the 18th, these times are in UTC, what kind of liquidations did we get?